I have to be honest, usually when I pick up a research paper and the title contains the words informational architecture and regenerative stability in the same sentence, my eyes sort of glaze over a bit.
Oh yeah, it's a mouthful.
It really is. I mean, it sounds like something meant for a computer science lecture, not a nutrition journal. But I've got this paper in front of me, Food Coherence and the Informational Architecture of Regenerative Stability, and I just haven't been able to put it down. It completely reframes the way I look at my lunch.
It is a really dense title, I'll give you that. But it's actually incredibly descriptive of what's happening biologically. It's proposing that we stop looking at food as just, a pile of bricks or a tank of gasoline and start seeing it for what it really is.
Which is?
A complex set of software instructions.
Yes. That distinction right there, software versus hardware, is where I want to start this deep dive. Because if you ask most people, myself included, why they eat, they'll say for energy or to get protein.
Okay, the fuel analogy.
Exactly. We treat the body like a combustion engine. You pour in fuel, you get out movement. And if the fuel has some sludge in it, toxins, that's bad, but otherwise, calories are calories. This paper says that view is dangerously simplistic.
It is simplistic because it's reductionist. I mean, for the last 50 years, nutrition science has been completely obsessed with isolating variables.
Looking at single ingredients.
Right. We ask things like, is red dye 40 toxic at 50 milligrams? And if the answer is, well, it doesn't kill the lab rat immediately, we deem it safe. We look at the parts, not the whole. But your body isn't a bucket where you just dump ingredients. It's a goal-directed, self-organizing collective.
Self-organizing collective. That sounds a lot like a massive corporation. And actually, that analogy really helped me get my head around this. If my body is a Fortune 500 company, the cells are the employees.
That's a perfect way to visualize it. And like any massive company, the biggest challenge isn't whether you have enough paper clips. The biggest challenge is communication. It's coordination.
Right, getting the departments on the same page.
Exactly. You have logistics, security, HR, maintenance. They all need to talk to each other constantly. This is what we call closed-loop control systems. The system monitors itself, detects an error, say sales are down, or the warehouse is too hot, and sends a signal to fix it.
So in this scenario, food isn't just the electricity keeping the lights on at headquarters.
No, not at all. In this framework, food is the internal memo. It's the email chain.
Yeah.
It's the Slack messages. Food dictates the quality of the communication architecture.
Okay, so it's the actual information telling the company what to do.
Yes. If you eat a meal that is coherent, which we'll define in a bit, the emails are crystal clear. They say, repair the roof on level 4, release insulin now, calm down the immune system.
And if the food isn't coherent, if it's, say, highly processed,
then the emails are garbled. Or worse, it's like a reply-all storm of spam. The employees, yourselves, just don't know what the priority is. Do we fix the roof? Do we attack an intruder? Do we hoard resources?
and the machine keeps running, but the efficiency just collapses.
Precisely. You're surviving, but you're not operating well.
Which brings us to the core concept of the paper, which is regeneration. Now, when I hear regeneration, I'm thinking of a salamander growing a tail back. Or maybe Wolverine.
Yeah, science fiction stuff.
Right, it feels like a special event that only happens when you get severely injured.
And that's a super common misconception. We think of healing as an emergency response. But the paper argues that regeneration is actually the default mode of your biology. It's happening right now to you as you're listening to this.
Just constant turnover.
Exactly. Your gut lining replaces itself every few days. Your skin, your liver, they are constantly rebuilding. It's not a superpower. It's just the daily maintenance crew doing their rounds.
So if we are always regenerating, why do we get sick? Why do we age the way we do?
Because the maintenance crew gets distracted. Regeneration only works efficiently when the system is stable and low noise. If the corporate headquarters is in total chaos, if the fire alarm is pulling or the servers are down, the maintenance crew stops fixing the drywall and starts handling emergencies.
Okay, the paper lists 6 regulatory domains that determine if the HQ is calm or chaotic. I don't want to just list them off like a textbook, but let's talk about how they connect, because the interplay here is fascinating.
Yeah, they feed into each other.
Yeah, and the one that really stood out to me was the relationship between the barrier integrity, essentially the walls of the factory, and the immune inflammatory tone, which is the security team.
That is probably the most critical axis for modern health. Think about your gut barrier. It's the perimeter fence of the company. It decides what gets in, like nutrients, and what stays out, like bacteria and toxins. Yeah. If that barrier is solid, the security team, your immune system, can just sit back in the break room and relax. The tone is calm.
But if there's a breach in the fence...
If the barrier is compromised, which is what we often call leaky gut, the security team has to deploy immediately. Now you have active inflammation, and here's where you get the domino effect. When security deploys, they use weapons. In the body, those weapons are oxidative stress.
Ah, okay. That's the redox balance the paper talks about?
Exactly. Oxidative stress is basically collateral damage. It's rust. So now, because the wall was breached, security is fighting, and they're causing rust damage to the machinery on the factory floor.
Which impacts the power plants, right? The mitochondria.
You got it. It puts massive stress on the mitochondria.
Yeah.
They have to work harder to repair the rust, so energy production becomes completely unstable. Oh, and I should mention the other domains here too, just to be thorough.
Right, there were 6.
Yeah. So beyond the gut barrier, the immune tone, the redox balance, and the mitochondria, we also have your endocrine, timing your hormones, and the bioelectric gradients.
Bioelectric gradients. We are definitely coming back to that one because that blew my mind.
Oh, it's the best part. But to summarize the domino effect, a disruption in one area cascades through the whole network.
So one weak link in the fence leads to a riled up security force, a rusty factory floor, flickering lights in the power plant, and messed up hormones.
Precisely. And this pushes the entire organism from one state of being into another. The paper describes 2 distinct physiological states, the regenerative state and the defensive state.
I love this binary because it just makes it so clear to visualize. State A is the regenerative state. This is the peacetime economy.
Right. In state A, inflammation is transient. It pops up to heal a paper cut and then vanishes. Antioxidant reserves are totally full. Energy is stable. The maintenance crews are doing deep work. They're fixing long-term structural issues, optimizing DNA repair.
And state B is the defensive state.
State B is a city under siege. The priority shifts completely from thriving to surviving. The immune system is constantly activated. The baseline inflammation is just always elevated.
And the deep work stops.
Completely. The body stops doing deep repairs and switches to containment. Instead of fixing the road properly, it just slaps a metal plate over the pothole. That's fibrosis, that's scarring, that's low-grade dysfunction.
And the scary part is you can live in state B for decades, right? You're not technically sick enough to be in the hospital, but you're definitely not regenerating.
Exactly. You're functionally adapting to a hostile environment. And this is where that definition of food coherence comes in.
Right, the degree to which a diet keeps you in state A rather than pushing you into state B.
Yes. A coherent diet keeps you in state A. An incoherent diet forces you into state B.
Okay, so let's get to the villain of the story here. Processed food. We all know it's bad for us. But usually, people say it's bad because it has too much sugar or too much salt or empty calories. This paper says, no, that's not the main problem. The problem is signal distortion.
This is the massive aha moment of the paper. If you look at an ultra-processed cracker, the macros might actually look fine. It has carbs, fats, maybe even some added vitamins. But the structure of the food, the matrix, has been obliterated.
Matrix disruption. It sounds so sci-fi, but we're talking about the physical architecture of the food itself.
Yes, the physical layout of the molecules. In a whole almond, for example, the fat and protein are locked inside a complex fiber matrix. Your body has to work to unlock it. The signal is slow and steady. It's like, here comes some energy. Okay, now some protein. It's a polite conversation.
But in a processed food, that matrix is pulverized.
Completely destroyed. The nutrients hit your bloodstream instantly and simultaneously.
It's like shouting at the cells instead of talking.
It's shouting, but it's also incredibly confusing. You're getting a massive spike of energy, but often without the accompanying satiety signals that nature usually provides. Plus, you have all these additive mixtures, emulsifiers, preservatives, flavorings.
And the paper calls this regulatory noise.
Think back to our corporate analogy. Whole food is a clear, concise memo from the boss. Processed food is static. It's like hearing the boss's voice through a really bad radio connection.
The cells hear something, but they aren't sure what to do.
Exactly. Do we store fat? Do we burn it? Is this a pathogen we need to fight? When the signal is ambiguous, the body defaults to safety.
Which means inflammation.
Correct. The body assumes the noise is a threat. It shifts to state B. And the real-world context here is that we aren't just eating one additive in isolation, like in the lab tests.
Right. The paper calls it cumulative exposure.
Yes. We are dealing with multi-additive combinations, weird matrix-dependent chemistry, and chronic repeated dosing every single day.
There are some specific markers mentioned in the text that prove this isn't just a theory, right? Things like urinary 8-OHDG and zonulin. I don't want to get bogged down in the acronyms, but what are these actually telling us if we measure them?
These are your check engine lights. 8-OHDG is a marker of oxidative damage to your DNA. If that's high in your urine, it means the rust we talked about earlier is reaching your actual genetic code.
Wow. And the others. There was HSCRP and oxidized LDL.
Those show chronic inflammation. Your antioxidant reserves, like glutathione, drop. And zonulin is the protein that opens the gates in your gut wall. If zonulin is high, your perimeter fence is wide open.
So these markers show us that the noise of the diet is physically degrading the system's infrastructure.
Exactly. It's measurable damage from bad information.
Okay, now I need to push back a little on the next section of the paper, because this is where things get, well, pretty out there. The paper dedicates a significant chunk of time to bioelectricity.
I thought this might trigger your skepticism radar.
It absolutely did. When I hear bioelectric fields, I start thinking of crystals and auras. It sounds like woo-woo pseudoscience. But the authors claim this is hard developmental biology, so convince me, what does electricity have to do with my lunch?
It's a totally fair skepticism, but this is mainstream biology that we just often ignore in nutrition. Think about an embryo. It starts as a blob of identical cells. How does that blob know to turn into a complex human? How do the cells know I'm going to be an eye and I'm going to be a liver?
DNA, right. The genes are the blueprint.
See, that's the thing. The genes are the parts list. DNA tells the cell how to make proteins, but DNA does not tell the cells where to go or what shape to build. That spatial organization is controlled by bioelectric gradients. It's a voltage map.
A voltage map?
Literally. Before a face even forms on an embryo, there is an electric face, a pattern of voltage across the tissue that guides the cells into place. It's like the Wi-Fi network at the corporate headquarters.
Oh, I like that.
Right. The employees, the cells, have the parts, which is the DNA. But the Wi-Fi, the bioelectricity, tells them where to put the parts.
Okay, that's actually mind-blowing. So we have an electrical blueprint that holds our shape together.
Yes. This is what they call structural pattern memory. It's what allows regeneration to happen at all. If a salamander loses a tail, the bioelectric field remains, acting as an invisible scaffold for the new cells to fill in.
So how does eating a bag of processed chips mess up my electric face that still feels like a massive leap?
It connects back to the ions. Bioelectricity is generated by ion channels in the cell membranes. Potassium, sodium, calcium moving in and out. This requires precise membrane integrity.
Ah, I see where this is going. If we have that regulatory noise, if the membranes are inflamed or oxidized...
Exactly. If the hardware is rusty from oxidative stress and the environment is chaotic from inflammation, those ion channels can't maintain the proper voltage. The Wi-Fi signal drops.
And if the Wi-Fi drops, the cells lose the blueprint.
They lose the precise blueprint. They don't die, but they lose the instruction for perfect repair. So instead of rebuilding the tissue exactly as it was, which is regeneration, they just patch it up with scar tissue.
Fibrosis.
Yes. The paper argues that chronic disease is essentially a loss of this bioelectric information. The metabolic static becomes so loud that the body quite literally forgets what healthy looks like.
That is terrifying, actually. It implies that junk food is literally erasing the memory of our healthy self.
It's degrading the signal fidelity, yes.
Yes.
It's cutting off the instructions for repair.
So if we buy this, if we accept that food is information and we need to minimize the noise, how do we measure it? I can't look at a nutrition label and see a bioelectric static score. The regulatory agencies don't require a matrix disruption warning.
No, they don't. And that's a massive blind spot in our current public health system. But the paper proposes a new metric to fix this. It's called the Food Coherence Index, or FCI.
What would the FCI look at that a standard calorie counter doesn't?
It would look at cumulative exposure mapping. Meaning, instead of asking, is this one single additive toxic, it asks, what happens when you combine these 5 additives with a disrupted food matrix? It actually penalizes the complexity of processing.
So a heavily processed protein bar with 40 ingredients, even if it has supposedly good macros, would score terribly.
Very low. Because the informational content is chaotic. The FCI also prioritizes something called biomarker network stability. Are the body systems talking to each other properly? And adaptive reserve.
Adaptive reserve. I really like that term. What does it mean in this context?
It's a measure of your bounce-back ability, your resilience. If you encounter a stressor, a virus, a bad night of sleep, a super stressful day at work, how quickly can you bounce back to state A?
The regenerative state?
Right. A high-coherence diet builds a deep reservoir of resilience. A low-coherence diet leaves you completely fragile. You might feel fine when life is easy, but the moment stress hits, The system collapses because there's no reserve.
It's like operating a company with zero cash in the bank. You're totally fine as long as revenue flows perfectly, but one bad month and you're bankrupt.
Exactly. And the central hypothesis here is that chronic exposure to additive-dense, disrupted food matrices keeps us biologically living paycheck to paycheck. We have no buffer. It reduces our regenerative stability, even if it doesn't make us acutely sick right away.
So, drawing this all together, we started by saying we really need to stop thinking of food as fuel. We need to see it as information.
Right. Every bite you take is a set of instructions.
And we've learned that our bodies naturally want to regenerate. That's the default setting. But we are jamming the signal with processed foods that disrupt our chemical and electrical architecture.
The main takeaway for you listening is to focus on signal clarity. Whole foods, meats, vegetables, fruits, eggs, these have a coherent matrix. They speak a language your body has understood for 1,000,000 years.
And processed foods.
Processed foods speak a foreign, garbled language that puts your system on high alert. It really means public health needs to look beyond these isolated toxic thresholds and start looking at cumulative interference.
It completely shifts the burden of proof. It's not about proving a specific additive is a deadly poison. It's about asking, does this food add noise to the system?
That's the critical question. Is your next meal adding clarity or is it adding static?
I want to leave everyone with a thought that really stuck with me from the end of the paper. We talked earlier about deferred maintenance, how the body in state B stops doing the deep cleaning and just does the bare minimum to survive.
A containment strategy.
Right. So here's the question for you to mull over. If your body has been in defensive maintenance mode for the last 5 or 10 years because of dietary noise, what long-term repair projects is it neglecting right now? What part of you, your brain, your joints, your gut, is just waiting for the signal to clear up so it can finally heal?
It's such a powerful question. And the hopeful part is the blueprint is still there. That bioelectric memory is likely still there. It's just waiting for the noise to stop so it can get back to work.
The maintenance crew is ready. We just have to stop pulling the fire alarm. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Stay coherent out there.